Let us begin the review of the article. The article name is The Impact of COVID-19 on Indian Economy. It also includes the case study of impact of COVID-19 on the MSME sector of Indian economy. Let's further proceed. The contents goes in this way. Introduction, Indian economy, the Indian GDP, unemployment, trade import export, financial markets and banks, NBFCs and insurance, stock market, inflation, government budget, and finally we will study the case study impact of COVID-19 on MSME sector. These are the 10 things along with the case study on which the impact is studied and presented in this article. The introduction. Coronavirus is an infectious disease. It not only affected India but it shook the world economies flat to earth. In this article, we are going to concentrate on the theoretical linkages, statistics to evolve the potential and estimated impact of the pandemic on virus on the macroeconomic variables, and we also focus economic consequences of the virus on Indian economy with present assessment of economic outcomes and policy measures. Indian economy, the impact cannot be measured directly. The organized sector lost 9 trillion and the manufacturing and service sector fall to 23% between April and June 2020. Consumer retail fell from 3 to 23% and the most vulnerable sector of the Indian economy is MSME sector has witnessed a disturbing phase in its functioning due to this crisis. And if we look into the Indian GDP, estimated quarterly impact on GDP, as you can see on the graph, October to November 2019 it is 1.2 was the GDP, and January to March 2020 5 was our GDP growth rate of the GDP. And if you see at April to June 2020 where the pandemic got severe in the country, the GDP fall to minus 9.3%. And you can also see the three-phase sector model to represent the approximates of the GDP growth rate on financial year 2021. If you see the percentage that they have calculated is 1 to 2% and minus 2 to minus 3%, minus 8 to minus 10%. That could be the severity. And the three scenario model estimate of Indian GDP is as shown in the figure. And now let's move to unemployment status. And the unemployment got severe once the lockdown was announced by the Prime Minister, and it got exponentially increased from 8.15 to 26.2, which is almost tripled in span of a single month, that is April. And if you see that the daily laborers were returned to their homes, they have no alternative of working anywhere due to permanent lockdown. The MSME were shut, the business were closed, no exchange, no trade was happening in the country, which led to lack of demand. The lack of demand provoked the companies to lay off their employees in every sector. So that's the main reason of unemployment in India during the pandemic. If you look into the trade import and export, and the trade result shows in this way. Chemical sector is $129, textile and apparel $64, automotive $34, metal and metal products $27, leather products $13, electrical machinery $12, and the trade has happened in this way. The impact of COVID-19 on import in India April 2020 is shown all the negative figures. If you can see on the graph, organic and inorganic chemicals minus 35.1, that the import demand got reduced drastically. And you can see the further statistics. You can see the electronic goods minus 62.72% of demand got fell. And next, if we move to the financial markets and banks, due to the closed situation, all the banks and the financial markets and the stock market, every financial institution was shut. There was no services offered, no products got exchanged. In this situation, the fintech companies are comparatively well placed to deal with the remote working requirements like digital working, although some of them are uncertain of funding in this volatile period. The current situation requires constant careful of handling from financial institutions as they have duty of measuring consumers. The financial banks are already getting support from the RBI. And if we look into the status of NBFC, the non-banking financial corporations and insurance, the insurance area are struggling with following things. There would be a steep fall in the premium income of the people because there are no jobs at all. And whatever the loans taken by the consumers, domestic consumers, have not been repaid, there will be higher medclaim in future, resulting in higher costs. There would be constraints on capital raising as liquidity and the pay of the parent back. So, due to the lack of ability to pay back the loans, the economy and the financial sector of the economy is about to face a large impact of lack of mobility of funds, which gonna affect the businesses as well as the economy severe. The stock market of the country has seen a steep downfall. Sensex fell 4,000 points, that is 13.15%, and Nifty fell 1,150 points, that is 12.98, which has never seen before 2008 downfall. Sensex saw its biggest gain in 11 years, adding an enormous value of 4.7 lakh crores from the investors once the lockdown was revoked. And inflation, if you see the graph, there are multiple points in the graph where the inflation got raised steeply. But the point where, if you see the year 2019 to 2020, the inflation is like almost exponentially a steep curve. Due to the pandemic, the businesses were shut for 8 months. Still, the MSME sector business people and also the corporates had to pay the bills without any profits or without generating sales or revenue. These people are demanded to pay their bills, which led to increase the prices once the pandemic got revoked. The government budget has a deficit of minus 9.5%, which has ever seen in Indian history. This is only because the government had to provide financial aids for all the sectors of economy to revive it for its previous stage. That was the primary motto, that why the government has announced the $3 trillion financial aid for the economy's various sectors. Now, if we look into the case study, impact of COVID-19 on MSMEs, and let's start with the definition of MSME. The micro units can be categorized into up to 25 lakhs, if that is service, up to 10 lakhs. Small and medium will be falling under over 25 to 5 crores and over 5 to 10 crores respectively. The service sectors, you can see the statistics there. The main problems that MSME sectors are facing is non-registration, unorganized sector, lack of financing, lack of advanced technology, and lack of marketing channels. Meanwhile, these problems are prevailing in COVID-19. Was a big shock for MSME sectors. These people are struggling their day-to-day activities on the revenues. Lockdown questioned the existence of MSME. These firms don't have enough cash to wait out the crisis. They have to pay their stationery dues, wages, and processing the creditors, also the other taxes and costs. They're always suffering due to increase in the cost of raw materials. Every sector got increased the raw materials from a primary sector to the tertiary sector in the entire economy. Many of these companies have been asked to shut or curtail operations while paying employees apart from meeting costs for taxes, power, rents, and other utilities, etc. The pandemic has thus come as a last nail in the coffin for this vulnerable sector, which contributes to over 30% of the GDP. And if you see the demands, according to the reports, MSME representatives have appealed to the government for concentrated action, including tax concessions, fast and easy credit, GSE write-offs, reimbursement, etc. Small and micro enterprises want the government to allow payment of GST arrears in installments along with the current due. They want this to accomplish with 6 months moratorium. Some SME associations have urged the government to allow units that they have the facility for social distancing to operate during the lockdown extension. And the measures that the government have taken to revive this MSME sector from the downfall, there are short-term and long-term measures that you can see on the slide. Atmanirbhar Bharat financial package and 3 lakh crore collateral free loans have given by the government, clearing the MSME dues. SIDB assistance, reimbursement of fixed costs, financial assistance to MSMEs, change in the definition of MSME, enabling them to aid for the government services, smart industrial village policy, and Make in India policy. There are a lot of support from the government. In the conclusion, there are MSMEs facing several problems which makes them one of the most vulnerable sector of the economy, providing employment to many people in the country and decreasing regional disparity, as many as these enterprises are established in rural and backward classes. In the current scenario, there is a pressing need to work towards self-reliance of the country, which would be possible by empowering this MSME sector. In this sector is not protected in India. It is like that more than 50% enterprise will shut down, which will leave many people unemployed. The government must identify the MSMEs and devise a long-term strategy for the sustenance of the sector in order to help them survive the pandemic as its aftermath. And this is Prem Kumar. Thanks for watching the video.